This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
Every trial has a rhythm. It starts with a slow burn of discovery, the evidence, the prep, the positioning, then it builds openings, testimony, reactions, and finally it arrives here, the part where the strategies become surgical, the stakes become real, and both sides know the clock is running out. This is where the James Craig case now stands. The prosecution has spent weeks lying out their narrative. A respected dentist struggling with money, fed up with his marriage, and wanting out. But instead of divorce, they say he chose cyanide instead of therapy and chose deception. And instead of letting Angela leave, he allegedly decided to erase her, slowly, deliberately, and with a digital and chemical trail that ends in the morgue. Now, the burden is on them to convince the jury that all of this adds up, that Craig had motive, means, and most of all, intent. But the defense, they're threading the needle, reminding the jury there's no video, no eyewitness, no signed confession. They're poking at gaps, casting doubt on forensic timelines, offering up alternative explanations. Maybe Angela was unstable. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe it was not as outright as the state wants everyone to believe. And this is where strategy becomes survival, because at this point, there's no adding new characters to the story. The facts are in. What's left is spin, control, and clarity. Who can tell the cleaner version of events, and who can make the jury feel the weight of their argument. So how do you stick the landing in a high-profile murder trial that's already been full of jaw-dropping moments? How do prosecutors avoid overplaying their hand? And how does the defense make reasonable doubt feel real? Not like a fallback, but like the most rational choice in the room. We're bringing it all together now with Eric Fatt as someone who knows how fast the temperature changes in a courtroom once closing arguments are on the horizon. Let's go into that conversation. Every trial has a rhythm. It starts with a slow burn of discovery, the evidence, the prep, the positioning. All of it, the prosecution is now threading together motive, financial strain, the affair, the image control, the means, the poisoning, the post-crime consciousness of guilt. The defense is leaning on the lack of eyewitnesses here, the alternative explanations, the personal, emotional complexity. How tight does a prosecution case need to be when, this is largely circumstantial? Is the digital evidence going to be enough, in your opinion, here in a case like this? We've seen a lot of interesting outcomes lately where, of course, all it takes is one. But one, I don't know, feels like it's coming by a lot easier than it used to.
This is such a tough case for the defense because, like I said, there's the digital footprint, there's the toxicology report, there are actions taken allegedly with a consciousness of guilt to cover it up. If Angela Craig had died some other way, defense would have more outs here. But really, even though they don't have any burden, they don't legally need to do this, the jury's going to want to say, hey, what is the plausible alternative explanation as to how Angela Craig died of poisoning? And someone slowly administering poison to themselves over the course of weeks, suffering and suffering and suffering, is just not terribly plausible.
What's your best route here? As a defense attorney, what's your best route to introduce a reasonable doubt? Is it just that there's all these other maybe possibilities out there? None of them are super strong, but just, you go at them in mass with a lot of things. Just scatter all this out there under the thing, and maybe you'll be distracted. I don't know. I don't know where you'd go on this one.
That's really been the defense's approach. And I know Lisa Moses. She is the lead defense attorney, and she is very good. And she is on top of things. And she's scoring some points where she can. For example, when they were talking about the internet searches from a Google account, like how many grams of cyanide will kill a person and terribly incriminating searches like that, the defense did establish that, hey, it was the detectives who just went through the computer to find those searches. It wasn't a digital forensics expert, and the detectives did it in kind of a casual fashion that could give rise to some mistakes. Perhaps defense is going to argue that they planted some of these searches to kind of put their finger on the scale at the end of the day.
And that's why everything needs to be done correctly. Otherwise, you get situations like this where maybe this happened, maybe this didn't happen. Obviously, there's a big emotional narrative to this whole thing. The prosecution has created that emotional narrative. Craig wanted to escape the crumbling life, and he wanted out this way, so he decided to kill his wife. But again, it's a tough one when you got 6 kids. I mean, that is a hard pill to swallow, that dad would want to end life of mom that badly that he's going to go to that level. But obviously, he had financial troubles. That's documented. He had a mistress. That's documented. He had failing business partnerships. That's documented. How do you separate the bad character from the criminal intent and make that clear to a jury?
Oh, sure. So, the defense did, I thought, a reasonably good job when they were talking about text messages. So what they were showing was that James Craig appeared to be trying to repair the relationship after the infidelity, saying how much he loves Angela Craig. He wants them to have a future. He wants her to be his wife going forward. And, arguably, all of that is inconsistent with wanting to kill her. And so I think that defense is trying to show the good sides that they have of James Craig while all of this other kind of monstrous evidence is coming out.
Are we going to see any other elements of character in this, of him acting nefarious? Obviously, we do have some after the fact in prison, but again, I could see that being spun of either it's just BS, it didn't happen, and they're trying to railroad him, or he's doing it because this is his only way out, because everyone's going to think he's guilty no matter what, so he has to do something to create this ruse that will bring you to the reality of what life actually is and not what they want you to believe. I could see that being the thing. But the thing is, beforehand, prior to all of this happening, do we have anything? Do we have any evidence of a character pattern of him being deceptive to others in life? I know there were some business issues that were going on. I don't think, obviously, a lot of those are getting into this trial. But a pattern of behavior that shows anything that would point to this guy being capable of killing his wife.
Well, some interesting pieces of evidence have come out that relate to character already. So one thing that came out in court that I was unaware of before this trial, and it was kind of a dramatic moment. The office manager testified, and what she testified to was that she developed an intimate emotional relationship with James Craig. That's how they put it. So you add that to his documented and admitted infidelity in December of 2022, 3 months before Angela Craig died. And then apparently there was infidelity going on for quite some time before that. And I think defense is going to argue that, hey, if some kind of new mistress wanted or caused James Craig to kill somebody, to kill his wife, that would have happened years ago, because he had he had multiple mistresses before that. And so they're trying to kind of turn that negative into a positive and spin it in a way that helps protect James Craig.
Yeah, I mean, is it showing that he's, a manipulator and, a womanizer, or, I'm sure that's probably how they want to spin it, or is it showing that he's, capable of something much darker? Because you're right. Like, if he wanted out before and he seems to be going and living this life, why now would suddenly murder be the way out of it? Unless we're looking at financial difficulties or some sort of reason to get out of this. Is that going to be part of the motive here in some way, shape, or form as well? Is there a financial angle to this?
The prosecution has tried to tie that in. So what they've established is that James Craig was having serious business issues. He had a prior bankruptcy, I believe in 2020. So around 3 years before Angela Craig died. He was trying to get back on his feet business-wise. He partnered with his Dr. Redfern, but it wasn't going that well. And Redfern testified that even out of the 10 months they were partnered, they only had a profit like 2 months or so. And so they're kind of just making the argument that James Craig's life was was crashing in all around him from multiple angles, romantic, professional, all of that. And that sort of pushed him over the edge to ultimately poison his wife and start anew.
Is there something else going on with this guy? I mean, it just feels, I mean, just his line of thinking is so out there. It seems in so many ways, it makes you wonder, like, is there some mental health problem going on to think, you're going to get the deep fake video made, you're going to get a hit out on the detective? I mean, none of this seems to be like the reasoning or the thinking of a healthy brain that's also capable of working in dentistry and reaching the levels that he did at one point. It makes you, I mean, my mind, when I first heard about this case all those years ago, was like, is he really into drugs or something? Because this seems really off, or some sort of a psychological break. Is there any area where they're looking at the psychology of this case or his psychology to go, he's sick, there's something off here?
It wouldn't surprise me if his attorneys, months before trial, had a mental health evaluation done for the reasons you mentioned. Although I don't know that was performed, and we certainly haven't heard any evidence of it at trial. It's debatable whether it would even be admissible at trial.
Sure.
But yeah, you would think that you'd want to look into sort of the psyche of this person. One thing I would note too, Tony, is that one of his prior attorneys, Harvey Steinberg, for whom I worked, he's an esteemed defense attorney, he filed a motion to withdraw on a previously scheduled first day of trial, saying that the course of action the client wanted to proceed in was either fraudulent or criminal, and that it was either repugnant to the attorney or something with which the attorney fundamentally disagreed. And so read into that what you will.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you'd really have to read it, because I know he can't say exactly what it was. Can he say that later? Like, once this thing is done, can he share what on earth that was?
Probably not while James Craig is alive. There's still a privilege, even though he withdrew. So you can't necessarily disclose the basis for that.
Obviously, you can't disclose that. But I mean, if you were to, I mean, can you speculate? Like, what kind of thing would have to be said? I mean, just in theory here, to make the attorney right up there, right before the trial's supposed to start, saying, "I'm out."
It could be any number of things, just kind of speculating at this point. But one possible theoretical basis could be that James Craig wanted to strenuously argue to this jury that Angela Craig killed herself. And perhaps the attorney just wasn't on board with that. He didn't think that there was significant evidence of that. And you can't go into a jury trial and just tell a bald-faced lie or something you think is a bald-faced lie to a jury. And so I'm wondering if that possibly played a role. And I'm wondering if James Craig wanted the attorney to somehow engage in a course of action that either or perhaps distance James Craig from the jailhouse activities when the attorney didn't see like there was any truth to doing that.
Yeah. Seems like a manipulator, to say the least. Here's the truth. Trials aren't won on evidence alone. They're won on story, on timing, on who the jury believes has the clearest, most credible version of events, even if that version has gaps. And in this case, both sides have played their cards. The prosecution has painted a picture of premeditation. James Craig was drowning in debt and deception and desperation, and they say he found a way out that required silence, not signatures. They walk jurors through the timeline, the toxins, the text messages, the internet searches, and the aftermath. They've pulled in experts, family, medical professionals. They've made the story of betrayal disguised as devotion. But the defense, they're going in on ambiguity right now. They know they don't have to prove Craig didn't do it. They just have to make someone on that jury unsure. Just unsure enough. Maybe the poisoning was accidental. Maybe Angela's state of mind wasn't as stable as the prosecution says. Maybe the cover-ups look worse than it actually is. The flailing of a panicked man who knew he was in trouble, even if he didn't cause it. And honestly, that strategy can work, especially in a case built on inference and circumstantial threads. It only takes one juror to stop the momentum to say, I can't say it was him beyond a reasonable doubt. But there's the weight of the cumulative story as well. One dose of doubt might be enough. But a dozen doses, matching the behavior, the motive, the method of the manipulation, at some point it stops looking like coincidence and starts looking like choreography. And that's what this trial is about. Which version of James Craig do jurors believe is more real? The heartbroken husband who sat beside his wife in the hospital, or the man who allegedly orchestrated her death and then tried to recruit his own daughter to fake her suicide? The answer will determine everything. What will the jury decide? What do you think thus far? Let me know in the comments section on YouTube. If you're not there already, just search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski to find us there and hit subscribe. Hit subscribe on the podcast platform as well so you don't miss any of our coverage of this case or the many that we cover for you right here at the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. Until next time, I'm Tony Brueski. Thanks for watching. We'll talk again real soon.
Craving non-stop true crime updates? Press subscribe now and get the latest cases, analysis, and expert commentary delivered straight to your feed. Only from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.